Mountain Fruit. For over 15 years, Mountain Fruit has been the preferred grocery for the discerning kosher consumer, providing meat, fish, and produce departments, delicious takeout, and so much more. Visit us today, 1523 Avenue M, or call us for free delivery, 855 MT Fruit. Also inquire about our member program. Mountain Fruit, the peak of quality, 1523 Avenue M, 855 MT Fruit. Visit us online at shopmountainfruit.com.
Welcome to Kashrus on the Air, your weekly radio show dealing with kosher issues for the kosher consumer. And I'm your host, Rabbi Yosef Wickler, editor of Kashrus magazine. And tonight we have a very special program because we have on with us the Mashgiach of the Year, Rabbi Yisrael Gilden from the Kuf K, who works at Givaudan, which is a flavor company. It's probably the largest flavor company in the United States. Are you on the air, Rabbi Gilden?
Assalamu alaikum, Rabbi Wickler.
How are you doing?
Baruch Hashem.
How does it feel to be the Mashgiach of the Year?
It feels great. I feel honored and humbled at the same time.
Tell me one thing that changed in your life since you became Mashgiach of the Year a week ago.
I'm $1,000 richer.
That's correct. But tell me something that in your daily life, did anybody, people come over to you? Do people know about it?
I've been getting texts. I've been, I've seen anonymous people don't want to use their wishing me Mazel Tov. Yes, they have if someone made an announcement in the shul. I happened to go out for a minute, and I got all the nods when I came back. I didn't know what the nods were about. Yeah, but Baruch Hashem.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yes, I do appreciate the honor, and I look at it as a when something like this happens in a person's life, you look to even improve and to even get better. That's the way I see it. To set an example for others.
Well, what do we have to improve, Rabbi Gilden? I thought if you're on the topic, how are we going to improve?
You know something. I'm learning something new every day. Makol Malamdai Iskalti. I learn from everyone in the industry, all my colleagues, all the Kashrus agencies that I deal with on a daily basis, and throughout the Kuf K, I had so many people that I was able to learn from and to glean from, as far as flavors, chemicals, and other parts of areas of the industry that I was involved with, and it was amazing to have these people around me circled, and I'm Baruch Hashem, very fortunate.
I'd like to know, you mentioned about the people that you're learning from the different other Kashrus agencies. I don't know if our listeners understand yet, but we have it in our articles because that's going to be for print, and anybody who wants to can get a copy of it. We'll send it to them. So if you want to, you can always send me an email at Kashrus, Kashrus @AOL.com, and just say I want to get the Mashgiach of the Year article, and we'll send it to you. But I want to ask you, you deal with a lot of Kashrus agencies because Givaudan is producing flavors that are used by companies across the world, and those companies have different hashgachas. So, but how many different hashgachas do you think you deal with? I mean, this is not I'm not going competition with you. If you're the biggest in the country, I don't think I can catch up. But let's just get an idea about how many different Kashrus agencies do you have to deal with?
I would say it's several different hashgacha agencies that we deal with. A lot in Eretz Yisrael, in the UK, and yes, and Baruch Hashem, we have a good relationship with them, and I think they can say the same.
Now, you indicated on some of the things that I'm going to just take things at random here. You indicated in some of the correspondence and the talks that we've had that the biggest challenge is Pesach, and from what I see, you're right in the middle of Pesach now. Is that correct?
I am in the middle of Pesach right now. As we speak, I have 3 different buildings. Givaudan is like a campus of flavors, if you look like, and right now, I have 3 different buildings. One of them, as a matter of fact, and 3 different buildings. And not only that, we're doing 3 different processes for Pesach. In one building right now, we're doing a distillation. And one building we're doing an extract, another building is a similar to extract, a washed extract. We're doing different flavors for Pesach. One's in like an orange flavor, a vanilla oleo, one's in ginger. So it's it's quite complex, but it's interesting. It's extremely interesting.
I've seen the picture, Rabbi Gilden. I've seen the picture of you with the goggles.
Uh-huh.
Actually, a few pictures with you with the goggles and the funny head covering.
Right.
That shows that you're actually in the plant and not just sitting in an office somewhere, relaxing. So,
Right.
I know you're working, but I want to know, what do you have to do physically? Are you really doing something, or are you just watching that?
Uh, Actually, physically, there is koshering involved. You talking about in the plant itself, or
Right, in the plant itself.
in the plant itself? Yes, we do have koshering involved. Monitoring different equipment. I'm sorry, I'm on speaker. If you want, I can take it off if it gets too noisy. Monitoring different equipment, what it's been used for, checking different log buildings, that writing in exactly what they do, so we have a trail. I'm physically viewing, receiving. Not only do I review receiving reports on a daily basis, but I also actually go out to the receiving dock, when the materials come in, and I make sure that they come in with the proper supervision, the way they're supposed to, or else they're put in quarantine. If they don't meet the criteria, so then it never makes its way into the facility. We basically checking to make sure that everything that I feel, let's say now we're in the middle of a Pesach campaign, right now going from building that it remains sealed, that no processes are happening without much hashgacha tamidus, and constantly reviewing the formulas on the floor, etc., checking to make any coverage issues, any other issues that might arise, to see how to deal with it. Any other questions that arise, if they're heating up, how they're heating up things, well, they're heating up theory, they're heating up, basically reviewing all equipment and processes, and exactly the actual formula, not relying necessarily on the screen. I just want to making sure that there are no substitutions in the actual paperwork. So I do go from compounder to compounder, actually reviewing, making sure that things meet the specs and they match up to what's in the system.
Now, when we were talking, and I was writing, because I wrote basically the story, although maybe changed around, but
Right.
I the thing that hit me was, how could one person do all this? Now, I mean, now really, it's a big plant. There's got to be different production every day. And
Right.
first of all, I assume they can't do certain things. You can't be in two places at once. You can't be mashgiach tamidi in two different buildings at once, right? So
Right.
you probably have to, you have to schedule it a certain way.
Absolutely. We do have extra help, especially during Pesach time. We do have we do have very competent field staff that do come in to help as it gets busy into the Pesach season. And yes, I do not have a clone, so we do have to make sure that it's being done in a proper and a competent way without compromising the kashrus in any way.
So that means that, Rabbi Gilden, that means that in Pesach you need more what you call mashgiach tamida, even though you're in the plant the whole time, but you mean really there at the production to make sure that everything goes well. But what during the rest of the year, how do you monitor that things are going well? I mean, I assume you're there for some sensitive things. I think there was something with grape juice added, or some grape a grape spill, or grape pour.
Or at any time that they use grape.
Yeah.
Since there are compatible ingredients in the plant, if we do have a non-kosher and a kosher grape juice, or any time that you do have compatible ingredients and extra sensitive ingredients, in our plant itself, there are a number of, as you know, in a flavor plant, there are a number of sensitive ingredients that constantly need checking: triacetin, triglycerides, glycerin, etc., ethyl polysorbate, etc. The list goes on. Yes. So we do have to And I do follow up also to make sure that nothing was being used. I can see actually from my screen when anything is being, etc. So there's a lot that can be done, even physically from my office. Even if I'm not on the floor, I can actually track everything that's going on.
So, but I mean, you at the one time in the factory, there must be 5 or 10 or 15 things going on.
A couple of things, yeah, there are a number of things going on once, but not everything is as complex. Some are with compounding pools, which are pretty relatively easy to control and to monitor. So it's not that the plants that I feel mostly, I would say 92, 93 pressure. So it makes it much easier in a work standpoint and in a monitoring standpoint for what I have to do on a daily basis.
But the setup of the actual production, something that you decide, or they decide, and you veto it if you can't be there. I mean, how does it work out that you're going to be available for all the pours, and they shouldn't be at the same time?
Okay, so that is scheduled, meaning they check availability to make sure. Since the formula, as you know, which is interesting, a formula can be, which is fascinating. I just put it ago. It's 91 ingredients in a peach flavor. People think of a flavor. What's in a flavor? But it was 91 that they were into about 200 ingredients in.
Wow.
Yes. So all these are scheduled, and you don't necessarily need me right away. There's lead time. They're going to need me in an hour, so I'm able to schedule it accordingly and work it out with the other. As I said, we have different buildings. Work it out that there's no conflict. So it does work out, and when it gets busy, like especially Pesach. Most of the year it's not as busy, then we do have extra help.
How long is your Pesach run?
Pesach run, when does it start?
June. It starts in June.
Actually, we start preparing for Pesach in June. We start preparing for Pesach, all the ingredients, because a lot goes by the crop. We're talking about lemon, lime, you have to, and the crush. So you have to know, that has to be manufactured ahead of time, and that has to be scheduled. So by Rosh Hashanah time or so, it has to be ready. We have to have our oil. The order has to be in already, and we finish around January. We finish December, January, for all our customers Pesach. But it is quite complex, and there's a lot of scheduling, and it changes from year to year. Availability of certain raw materials. And approvals. It's become a little bit more difficult, but Baruch Hashem, we've managed to get through it.
Did they introduce new equipment in the course of the years that you've been there?
Usually they replace equipment. There's not. I mean, they put in something recent, which is a few years ago, it's Roxanne, and which is called a Robital Roxanne, which is automatic. It's like a computer, a robot that you don't need. It does pours to be done manually. It's done automatically. It senses. It reads the barcode, and it's something that's made in Europe. I understand a number of facilities have this right now, and it does the pours by itself. It does so. There you have talking about over 200 containers of different chemicals and flavors that goes in and the pours are done automatically.
Oh wow!
So that's a new piece of equipment, a highly sensitive piece of equipment, and they've replaced outdated equipment and very modernized equipment and updated with modernized equipment in the plant.
The industry itself, though, is changing. Though, aren't there new methodologies or new techniques or new ingredients?
There are. The industry is constantly changing. There are different ways and different processes that are being employed right now that have never been done in the past. yes, it's you really have to keep up with and be really top going on uh, technical issues that are involved in manufacturing a product, etc.
So where do you go for for the technical knowledge? I mean, is there somebody maybe in the Kuf K, or is there
Yes,
some?
there is someone in the Kafka. I just want to acknowledge Rabbi Pintus Dervo,
Oh, sure.
who takes care of all Jivit, extremely knowledgeable and who's extremely helpful. And I try to follow is that this instant people get back to you right away, and we're able to communicate and pass that on to the customer. So, and to try to make the customer happy.
I want to go to one word that you mentioned before. I can't keep up with you. It's a little too fast for me.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying because I have a lot of ideas and I got to follow along your flow. You mentioned the coding, and I want you to just explain to people what this coding is, because that's a very crucial part of the game. I think that they'd like to know what that meant. You mentioned the word you coded things. Maybe you'll tell them what that means.
But regarding formulas, formulas I can have up to. I review formulas basically throughout Dividend United States, and it comes to my desk. It has to be that's one of the processes. It's called linearization. One step of the process. A number of people are involved, regulatory, etc. So I have to sign off on any formula, and I have to review any formula. And before a formula gets into a system, it has to go through, and I have to code it, or else it can't even go into the Jivadan system. It won't come to the floor. So they rely on me to code it properly. Coding meaning I have to look at a formula and decide by looking at the formula. Like I said, it could be a few hundred ingredients. And we do have a system in place that makes it easier, because every raw material, every component that's in the facility is coded a certain way. So I have to determine by looking at the formula if it's a kosher parent formula, if it's dairy, if it might be a meat formula. We don't do this on this site, but we do have a site that has a meat formula, kosher meat, etc. If it's approved for Pesach, if it's not approved for Pesach. So there's a lot to go through just on the formula side itself. So generally, I do have like 50 to 100 formulas to review a day. It gets easier, I guess, after a while.
Well, what in the world what is the meat used for?
They do have some type of savory type of soup items, etc., that they manufacture at one of our different facilities.
Wow, that's interesting. Then, yeah,
it goes into that line.
But so I heard somebody say, and this I'm not asking you to paskin, and it's just that we hear so much, and I'm talking to you now. Let me at least ask you, from your point of view, what the story is. There are issues, for example, toothpaste, medicines, mouthwash. These kind of questions that come up, which there may be many other factors. Well, it's not a food, and ingested, and not tend to ingest, and the medicine's a necessity. But sometimes we ask these questions, and people, I have heard that they say, or like so, and then one of the classic questions is these people, for example, have to take a test. Then the doctor giving a test, and you have to drink a liquid, and they don't know what it is. And the statement that I heard is that most flavors, and I heard it also said as peppermint flavor, is very unlikely to be not kosher, and that if you're in a pinch, if you can't help it, you could rely on that as a rule of thumb. I'm not talking about foods now. I advise everybody to get food with hashgacha, but we're talking about the other areas that are a little more difficult to preserve kashrus 100%. Is that a fair statement? I mean, even though you see all this stuff coming across your desk, you've seen those formulas.
Yes, we do hashgacha for. Actually, we do have a flavor that goes into tobacco. We have flavors that go into mouthwash, into toothpaste, etc. Most the ones that I deal with are generally kosher and generally prior. But it could be that, as you know, in the industry, there's a limited amount of non-kosher ingredients that do make its way for colorant. You have castoreum, civet, cochineal, and stuff, and burgris. It's a very small amount, I would say, of non-kosher ingredients in the flavor company. Very small.
And that may be only for coloring, you're saying?
No, they could a lot. Well, let's say cochineal extra, carmine is for coloring. Civet, I guess, would be a yellow core castoreum. It depending. They can use in mushroom flavors. Different some of these. So some of them are colorants, and some of them are for flavor, used in flavoring also, not only as a colorant.
But,
so, but it's limited.
in a finished product, would that be definitely bottle? I mean, not talking now. I don't mean the taste is there. I mean, we know the taste is going to be there. Otherwise, they wouldn't be doing the whole thing. But we're talking about the number 60. Even if we're not going to say that that's enough. Even if we're worried because it'll be the time if you little bottle. What?
The different factors that correct are involved in this. They are put in I'm just saying from my plant alone, the extracts and are put in a very, very parts per million, very small amount, and the ones that I deal with are definitely bottles.
Okay, so in other words, a person could Rov certainly could utilize this in considering how to deal with the question.
I would say it could be in consideration. It's not total. You know what I'm saying? There are other factors involved, but definitely to use it in consideration.
Right. Correct. Very good. Excellent. So I'd like to hear from you a story. There's one story that I did enjoy very much, and I tried to include it also. Maybe you'll tell us a story about that the 1,000-gallon piece of equipment and what happened with that.
Oh, the one that you plan to include?
Yeah.
I would actually. I was koshering an extractor in one of our buildings. And it takes several hours. As a matter of fact, I have an extractor in that same building right now that they just called me right before we started that they didn't reach 212 and they're going to have to start again tomorrow. Now it's boiling all day, but I was happy in a way because this way at least I'd be able to do the interview without compromise. So yes, we were boiling it up and everything was set to go. And I said, of course, the equipment was inspected. It was a 24-hour downtime. And I said, call me when it reaches. Obviously, I'm not going to stand there 6-7 hours. Hashgacha Tamid is waiting for it to boil. So I said, call me when it reaches the boiling. We'll check the graphs, etc. We'll check that it's actually also look to see that it's actually had a rolling boil. And when I came and sure enough, it did reach boiling, and they emptied it. And everything was set to go. And all of a sudden, I realized that there was a mesh screen that what they do is this is a cinnamon like a cinnamon bark, and they have to catch it. They don't want the cinnamon to wind up in the oil. They use like a mesh type of screen, and it was in there. It was covering the metal. It was covering a good part. It was on the bottom. And they said, Rabbi, I wanted to get a head start in the next production. This way you don't have to do it afterwards. Everything's ready to go. I said, you didn't get too much of a head start. You just cost us 7 hours of boiling it up again. And I explained to them the kosher rules. A lot of times I need to go over the rules with them as far as they always mix up 24 hours. They think you really need 24 hours after you kosherize. So it's very important. I always try to have a plan, especially for Pesach. I meet with the compounders and it's how are we going to do this? Let's make sure, because there's a lot of pressure from the industry and the beverage industry to get out a product on time and not to have a late. So the best way to prepare for it is for me to be involved with them. How are we going to do it? Do we have everything that we need to do the job? And do we have everything we need to pack out the job properly in order for them not to create that delay in getting out the product?
This is very interesting. I want to ask you, Rabbi Gilden, when you're 18 years in this facility, And of course, right now we're talking and you're conversant on anything. I would pick up any question. You could zap it out, the answer one, two, three. But 18 years ago and 16 years ago, how did a young man go from being involved with the butcher stores and a local vod, to walking into this plant? How did you what how did you get from A to B? I mean, you're now at a higher number, higher letters. We're much more advanced now, 18 years later. But how did you get it? How did you get into it? How did you work? Give me a little bit of a background about what happened, and maybe there's an interesting story or two, or some people who helped you, and let's hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. I was involved in many different when I lived in Buffalo in Western New York. As you know, in Western New York is the major dairy industry. So I did a number of they contracted. I took care of the Vada Buffalo, and they can be OU in the and the Kuf K. We did a number of the accounts. I visited a number of the facilities in the dairy industry, etc. So I got a lot of experience in the outside industry. I never got any experience in flavors and chemicals. I was always interested in doing something like that. It was always fascinating whatever I would read about a flavor, about the beverages, what goes into it, etc. Maybe one day I'll be zocheh to walk into a flavor facility. Sure enough, initially when I came to the Kuf K, I was doing a lot of many different inspections in the tri-state area in Canada, and one day, Rabbi Chaim Cohen, who also needed work, he needed that extra hashgacha that we were talking about for Pesach, and he needed help, and so I was brought in as a replacement to when he took days off or sick days. And I started to learn the system, and I really fell in love with the flavor and chemical industry. It's just so interesting and fascinating. I mean, I love visiting bread bakeries and other things, but there's so much involved. There's so much knowledge. I'm here over 18 years, and I'm still learning from day to day. I'm learning something new. As you said, there's so much that goes on. There's so much to keep up with, and I enjoy that. I don't want to say enjoy pressure, but I enjoy there's so much going on at the same time that I like to be involved with it. I really enjoy it. So that came about, and when the opportunity came, and I was asked if I'd like to take care of the facility, and I did have some experience in other flavor companies from the Kuf K. I would visit when I was in the office. I would visit other companies, and I would get experience in the New Jersey area and to the company. So it gave me that. It gave me some knowledge of what was going on. I learned a lot from Rabbi Arbach. I learned a lot from Rabbi Zisha Blach in the industry. And when the opportunity arose, I was thrilled. Again, it's not easy. I work amongst. I'm the only from person on site, and I do view my job as constantly trying to make a Kiddush Hashem and an ambassador for the frum world, how a Torah Jew is supposed to behave in the workplace, and I try to develop a relationship. I want people to speak well, as all the scandals you hear every day. I do want people to speak well when they say, "Hey, that's not my rabbi," or So it falls upon me that sense of responsibility, which I take seriously.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. The relationship with the different people you work with. I mean, in this plant, the 3 buildings or 4 buildings that are there, how many people are working totally? Hundreds?
There are, I would say, like 150 people.
150 people. So even if you don't interact with all of them on a daily basis, but you interact with a lot of people, the plant manager and all the staff and the different divisions, and you have to. It's an amazing number of people that you have to deal with. How do you do it and do that Kiddush Hashem? What is? Tell us the technique. Yelamdeinu Rabbeinu.
Yeah, I don't think there's a technique. I think having makabel is kol adam b'sever panim yafas. The person has to has to go. Whether it's I think about that story. I know with Rabbi Yitzhak Spiro or Rabbi Pesach Krohn. I'm sure you remember it with the guardhouse. You know, he used to say hello, he used to smile and say when he used to greet the guards.
Right.
One day the guard realized that the mashgiach was missing, and it turned out that he was locked in the freezer. I don't want to be the next person to be locked in the freezer.
Oh, that's
one
I
thing.
think you have more intention, better intentions than that.
And I think the proper, as far as speaking a Kiddush Hashem, you know, certain things need to be, you know, you don't want people to waste time. Like I try to make sure if I tell people that I'll be up in Rabbi, when are you going to be there? 5 minutes. They don't say it's a Jewish time. You know, so I try to keep to my words. And so this way they're not twiddling their thumbs and they have what to do. And I'm friendly to people, and that friendliness has really paid off over the years. Not that I do it on purpose, but a lot of, you know, especially in in the wash department, I've had people that came over to me and said, Rabbi, the water is a little bit low. I know you're trying to clean the equipment, you're doing a CIP. You know, do you want me to call maintenance? Now, this wasn't coming from me. This was calling just because I have that. I try to have that relationship with everyone, whether it be a material handler, a compounder, and director of operations. I try to have a cordial and a friendly relationship and a good working relationship. And
I want my listeners to understand that what Rabbi Gilden just told you is what makes a good mashgiach wherever he's working, whether it's in the restaurant or a catering facility, a food service area, or something like a specialty facility like he's. It's that relationship with the workers, many of them who are not Jewish, and just get that little extra smile, that little concern for them, understanding it, caring about, you know, thank you for helping, the little things like that. It means so much. One person told me, one mashgiach in a restaurant, that he, you know, how he honors everybody, including the people who wash the dishes, and he makes them feel that dishwashing is important for Kashrus, which it is. If he spots a dairy thing and he's doing fleishes, he's going to have to run over to the rabbi. Same way you're expecting them to run over, Rabbi, what about this, what about that? Because nobody, even if it wasn't this big facility like yours, Rabbi Gilden, nobody could actually do Kashrus if the staff is opposed to him, because it doesn't take much for them to compromise behind your back. No matter what things you have in place. Yeah, maybe the screen doesn't. Maybe you can't cheat if the screen is there, but there's still a lot of things that could happen that they find out about it, that they realize, because in the screen you can't tell how hot the water is. Anyway, you can tell me with something that shows the temperature, but there are other things that they can fool you with. Anyway, I wanted to ask you.
Sure.
It says here, if I'm reading from Rabbi Center, Rabbi Zachariah Center, who was the CEO of Kaf K, and just reading a few lines over here, he's talked about how you have this relationship with the staff that goes sometimes beyond the kashrus, where they seek advice from you on other matters, but that's personal or other things, and they sort of figure that you're going to be the man to have the answers. Is that really a common thing, or is there a story you can share with us about it?
I've had people on my way into my office from my car who've asked me, Rabbi, you know, my wife has cancer. Is that something can you put in a prayer for her? So people do recognize that in time of need, etc. And it's something that people have asked advice on different areas in their life that they're going through, relationships that they're going through. But I consider it a privilege to try to behave, especially I do have one Jewish person in the company in particular who asks me questions on and especially regarding, he always wishes me a good Shabbos and a good holiday, so I do try to have an influence on him as well. And let's see, what else can I think of?
No, that's it's very important. You know, they just had a story written in Ami magazine about Kiruv and Kashrus, including some of the Kuf K people also that were involved. When we come in contact with those other people, we don't know where it's going to lead. And we don't
Hmm.
know how many years it's going to take until it leads anywhere. But definitely, we are all of these ambassadors for what Yiddishkeit is all about. Because a lot of times these people never saw an Orthodox Jew, and they really don't know. And sometimes what's really interesting is that it could be a non-Jewish person who sees something positive in you, and then turns around to somebody who's Jewish and says, "Why aren't you like that, Rabbi?" They can affect a change in a Jewish person. I've seen this many times, and obviously we can't know what we accomplish, Rabbi Gild, and we're in this world to do, but we're not necessarily in this world to take credit for all that we do. So yeah, if you do it and you're doing it right and doing it with emunus and it gets somewhere, we just don't know where it's going to get, but it definitely has an impact. Let me ask you also. They talk about your coming down at inconvenient times and being available. I saw your schedule, and you're there basically from 9 till 6:30 or 7. Tonight it's going to be 7, you have to come back sometime in the middle in the night to see what's going on. I don't know exactly what that's for. Are there productions in the middle of the night?
Yes, we do spot inspections. Since this in the facility, they do work in our facility. We do work around the clock. But weekends usually is very limited work during the week. So we do spot inspections, unannounced inspections in the middle of the night. And not only over here, I do have other productions also in other companies that we do spot inspections and go in the middle of the night just to make sure that things are being done properly. We don't rely that hey, we'll just check in the morning, make sure everything is okay. So we do take it seriously. Not only it's not a 9 to 5 job; it's a job that's around the clock, and do come up in late hours in the night. I try to deal with it. And one thing that I shouldn't say pride myself with, but I really learned it from the Kuf K, from my boss, Rabbi Rosenbaum, is to try to get back to people, because I know how it is when I send out an email to someone or I make a call and there's no response. You can wait days. So I try to get back, even if I don't have an answer right away. I try to get back to people right away and letting them know. And that's one of my mission statements that I developed a couple of years ago that I have always hanging in front of me, and I try to read even a couple of times a day. I think it is important for people to note this, and that's why I think people are happy with the Kuf K, and I think they're happy with the service that we do at Jivanon. Is I have in my desk, it's in the Jivanon, we Kuf K representatives pride ourselves on our rapid responsiveness to our clients, as well as with our quick turnaround time on all kosher-related matters. Again, not always is the answer a yes. A lot of times it's a no, but at least people know that we're responsive. We care about them, and I think that's people do appreciate that.
One of the things that you described to me, and I think we mentioned it a little bit already, but not directly, is that sometimes you're caught in the middle. It seems to be that you're like the sandwich generation. You're caught in the middle here. On the one hand, you have to satisfy the Kuf K responsibilities. You have to, if a hashgacha is buying the product from you, and and they have certain requirements. You have to meet all those requirements. But then you have the plant personnel. They have their limitations, and you have the pressures on the outside sometimes to get a product out fast. So when you have these pressures, of course, I'm not talking the psychological aspect. That my brother could ask you more, what how do you handle it? I mean, is that something you can cry uncle to the plant manager? Is there somebody to go to? I mean, or you just tell the fellow, we're doing our best. How do you get out of that situation, being caught smack in the middle?
First of all, I take three deep breaths. That's the first thing to do. No, I don't drink. but but how do I get out of it is a good question. I think people realize that if we're going beyond and we're making things easy for them to try to get out a product and always available I set up systems, especially now we're talking about Pesach. We have a lot of Pesach here. Sometimes before I leave, I set up closed systems so they can run through the night without having to have a mashgiach and without having someone to come in and pay extra money, etc. I work with them. They realize that I'm working with them, and when they realize that, first of all, they let off, and I think they feel like they have a partner. So I don't feel that pressure, even though there is a pressure, and the company is waiting. Especially, I know this coming week there's a major production that's going to take place in Europe of beverages for Pesach, and we did have to get out a flavor that's a component that's going into this beverage. And interestingly enough, it took we were waiting to get the right spec, to get the right that it should smell right, that it's because you have sensory, you have analytical, you have the lab that's evaluating that it shouldn't be too harsh, it shouldn't have the right note, it should be. And we're waiting already 3 weeks. And the customer's waiting new. He says they'll have to bring them at mashgiach back again from Israel. He said we need it. We need it already. We needed it yesterday. That's usually what sales people do need it yesterday. So it's something that we work with and we try to satisfy the guy. And with a lot of siyata d'shmaya, usually things work out at the end. A lot of it's siyata d'shmaya. A number of times before I was speaking about just a little off the topic. Siyata d'shmaya is everything. I've been in companies, whether when I was working in Buffalo and in Cleveland, and then Kashrus, when you come into a company and all of a sudden you're met with a new shipment of butter, which is unacceptable, which just happened to arrive then. Hopefully, no, but a lot of it is siyata d'shmaya, being at the right place at the right time, and that's part of it. And I ask Hashem every day for siyata d'shmaya to do my work properly, and especially when I'm coding so many formulas a day. Like I said, it's easy to make a mistake to code something dairy that's para dairy. So I constantly double check myself, and you need a lot of siyata d'shmaya in this business.
Well, let me ask you some other questions that tie into us as consumers.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people listening to the show, they say, they remember the old days when people used to read ingredients. This is your life. Can you just tell us in a nutshell how that doesn't really apply today?
Absolutely. Okay. Just in a nutshell, because it's a topic by itself. But being in the industry, I'm constantly getting these questions. Is it really dairy? Is it not dairy? Is it dairy equipment? How come they don't list VE, et cetera, et cetera? This is on a daily basis. First of all, a lot of people just know the basic ingredients and don't know what, if they see cochineal extract, they see civet, or if they see started distillate, butter ester, they might know, but half the number, there's so many ingredients, there's 3,000 GRAS, general recognized as safe chemicals and the flavors that go in. When they write on let's say candy bar or wants with other natural flavors, that's all they're writing. You're talking about there's so many things that are not listed that you don't see. You're just getting the sugar and the basics that people read, and they think they understand the ingredients, and they make a decision that it's part of it's dairy based on what they see. But there's so many things, there's so many ways. I was just going through this the other day. I have something called butyric acid, which is it basically used. It's a butter flavor, but sometimes it could be dairy, sometimes it could be par, depending on the source. Or propionic acid, other stuff. It's could come from wood pulp, or it can come from dairy also. So there are a lot of things that you have to know, and you have to understand about, you know, about ingredients, about what you're reading, and you know, and people just assume that it's just a couple of ingredients. What was schlecht, but there could be a lot. There's so many sensitive ingredients that can go into a product, that a person really has to be nizar and really ask, and not just assume and buy things without hashgacha that's probably good.
You're very helpful with that, a little bit of information. I want to ask you another question. When you talk about you know, the different kashrus agencies that you work with across the world, some of them I know, and I could figure out some of them also, but not all kashrus agencies are the same. Now, we're not talking about if I want to add on a little chumrah this way, a little chumrah that way. I want this, I want that. You know, we're talking about that's add-on stuff. But do you come across? I mean, I'm not going to ask you for names, but do you come across in your work with these different agencies that sometimes they have to be led, and they're not always up on exactly what you know?
I do work with several agencies that are really on top of things, and really on top of the game. But I would say there are certain times that Metzias comes into that they don't really understand the Metzias of how something is made, how if something is processed, if it's with heat or if it's not with heat, and they automatically presume that it's an issue and not accept it. And they have to understand how something is processed. Yes, and things change the way they process.
So you're talking even the high-end people who have
Absolutely.
very strict standards. They're not always familiar with the reality.
Not always,
because
right.
they're not doing that kind of work themselves. They're contracting it out to you, and therefore they have to piggyback on your knowledge.
Right, but I make them knowledgeable. I mean, you know, especially when it comes to Pesach, which I've been dealing with for many years. I do know the Metzias and a lot of the oils and the citrus products that we are taking in and how they're processed. So I think it comes across to them, and I think they do respect it, and they do value my opinion when it comes to manufacturing a product for them.
But you didn't run across the other type that I was really leading up to, the people who are substandard. Because, I mean, I deal with 1,396 kashrus agencies across the world, the entire gamut. And I'm not going to give you the numbers, but there's some people who don't really shouldn't be in this game, and they're not knowledgeable, or you know, and sometimes they're not even committed enough to guarantee kashrus for the people that they're servicing. So I mean, but you have never run across such people probably because they don't talk to you. Why would they have to talk to you? They just assume it's kosher, right?
Correct, to a certain degree. Correct. Yes, I agree with that.
So you didn't really run into them. We do run across them, and it's a very unfortunate thing. I had a woman on today, and I think she may even be listening to the show right now, and she has some food that came. I think I know where she got the food from, and not the company, but how she got the food. And there's a compromise. She feels a compromise in the kashrus, and she's trying to deal with it. And a lot of times, the people that are giving that hashgacha are not doing a full job, and that's a very, very big problem. People get something for free. Some people get something that you know, it's available. I think one of the classic examples that I always run into is where my doctor gave me prescription for this particular vitamins to take, you know, neonatal vitamins, and I get it free. So so I have to be able to discuss whether it's kosher or not because they're getting it free. That's one of the things that I run into. Anyway, let's go back to your world over here.
Okay.
The 50 or 100 formulas that come by every day, these are the same ones, or these are new ones, or you do get new stuff every day?
We do get new formulas. The world, as you know, there could be 10,000 new formulas or so that the industry puts out during the year. I hope, and most of 9,000 of them, or 9,000 of the formulas will fail, and 1,000 will actually make it. The flavors, they're constantly trying to come up with new ways and try to, and put the ingredients in different ways. So we could have a vanilla flavor on my list. You could have like 10 of them, just with some minor substitutions to change it a little bit. So just to see how, and then they test it. There's a whole flavor panel that tests it to see how it is.
Now, you mentioned about when the non-Jewish people, you have to help them, like train them for Pesach and get them psyched up for what kosher is all about, and they have to do. But you also probably are training new mashgichim that come into the game, because just like you did many years ago, when you were somebody who was helping in the industry at the very beginning. So do you get these new people now? Tell us a little bit about maybe the expectations of a mashgiach, limitations, what you do, how to explain to them, what they find hard. Give us a little idea of what it's like a newbie in the game of kashrus.
Well, I do enjoy actually training new mashgichim. As you know, our computer systems are quite complex, and it takes a number of days, if not weeks, to be able to just understand the basics of it. So I enjoy showing mashgichim how we track things in so many different ways to look at a formula and to see how things work, and also to show them the processes in different buildings. And I think a lot of them. First of all, I find it helpful to have people that come into the facility when I'm unavailable. So it's not good when a person has the turf. That they feel, oh, I'm Rabbi Jivadan and no one else can come in, and etc. I feel that it's always good to have an extra set of eyes. And so Rabbi Jerval, I was mentioning before, is in here often. I have other rabbis that come in to stuff. So there are extra set of eyes, and a lot of them, even though, like you said, newbies, new mashgichim, they do point out certain things which I do take, and if it's something to be implemented, again, I try to learn new ways and add to the kashrus to make the kashrus even better. I think the kashrus is good, and try to make it better, Baruch Hashem. And yeah, I do think they find it too much. Meaning you can't just throw on everything at once. Like I'm speaking right now, you're talking about years and years of being in a flavor facility. But as you knew, you have to introduce slowly to people and learn once they learn, and go slow with people and try to make sure that they understand how a system works and how we're trying to maintain the kashrus in the facility. And I do introduce them to the people, the key people, the lead people in here, and so they should know that a lot of times sometimes a new person joins the company, and they won't bring them necessarily around to all the offices. So I try to, if someone's coming in and someone's new, I try to introduce them to the plant manager, etc. As a matter of respect.
We're talking about a newbie or somebody going into the kashrus field. They ask you. I mean, listen, you're not an old man yet, but you've been there for 18 years. You can't call yourself a spring chicken. So you must be over 21. So
a little bit.
So you how do you what do you tell this young man who's coming in about the field? What would you advise him? You went through it already. You went different routes. You were actually with the top. You were a kashrus administrator or as a coordinator, and then you became a mashgiach. Of course, it's a very sophisticated mashgiach job, but you're on the plane. You have to be there. You're tied down, and you just can't just pick up and run away. So and you're not making the big bucks of the people who own the hashgachas. What do you tell a young man who wants to go into the field of kashrus today? What would be the first thing you would tell him?
First of all, I would emphasize how rewarding the field is, what you're doing for the klal. And it is a lot for the klal. Let's say in my plant itself, I would say a good percentage of your listening audience either drinks or eats the flavors that come out of this facility.
But we'll never know because you can't give away the secrets of who your customers are.
Obviously, right. But just the fact is, you're affecting the rabbim. You're a klal yid. You're affecting the rabbim. You have a responsibility. It's an awesome responsibility. You have to make sure things that are coming out are kosher, and it's an awesome responsibility, and to be up to the challenge and to really understand what you're doing. Whether the ingredients, the processing of ingredients, it's not just mistamid goods. It's something that you have to be really erlich and have that integrity, and the same integrity and honesty that I have that's in my organization in the Kaf K. It's that same erlichkeit that I try to give over to people that I work with, and I've had that in a number of things. A mashgiach really has to he can't use the same mistama. It's good. I mean, mistama is good. I had 2 weeks ago, I had an ethanol from Pesach, an alcohol that we use. It's a diluent. It's used in formulas. And it came in, and it didn't come in according to the spec. It came in and said kosher for Pesach, but it was supposed to come in with the rabbi stamp on it. So it's something that they needed, and they needed yesterday, and they couldn't wait any longer. But yeah, and you can say mistama, it's good, but it's something that has to be verified. It's not something and it sometimes takes time. It's just a matter of know who you're working for. It's really just basically have the Rabbi Shalom in front of you. You can't you're doing this for the klal. If a person eats, as everyone your audience knows, there's timtum alev involved. Eating something that's not kosher, it's a terrible avera. It affects you. It affects your mind. It affects your learning. It affects your daily living. So that's something an awesome responsibility that helps you stay on track and not take things for granted and just go in, I've been here before. I try to look at every day. It's like, even though I've been here 18, 20 years, it's a new day. It's a new building. Let's see what's going on. That's what keeps it fresh. And that's basically it.
Well, I think the question about the awesome responsibility you're talking about is really very crucial. I think that one of the parts that we don't like to talk about in Kashrus is the fact that mashgichim are intimidated in different ways, and you do have to keep in front of yourself your own integrity. This is what I have to do, and no matter what happens, I'm doing it l'shem shemayim, and it could blow up in my face, but I have to do it. And the truth is that in most cases, the owner and the company or whatever it is will accept what you're doing. In some cases, they won't. But that's the job. If you're not going to do that, then you're fooling everybody, and which means you're fooling nobody, and you're fooling yourself. And I can't even tell you what it does to the neshama. Obviously, that's the most. Integrity is absolutely the beginning of the whole thing, and that's the only way you can survive. We've only got another couple of seconds, another couple of minutes left. What would you like to tell our listening audience, our last idea, thought, or for the mashgichim? I'm just going to remind everybody that if you'd like to get a copy of the article that's about the Mashgiach of the Year, we were talking with Rabbi Yisrael Gilden from the Kaf K, who works at Jivadan as the Mashgiach, and who's right in the middle of Pesach right now. So if you're interested in the article that we have in Kashrus Magazine, just send me an email at Kashrus, Kashrus, at AOL.com, and we'll send it over to you as soon as it's ready, which is in a couple of days. Again, Kashrus, Kashrus, at AOL.com. Just say Mashgiach story, and that's going to be enough, and we'll get it. All right, one last thing, Israel, you want to give us...
Yeah, I would just like to express my akaratotov, first of all, to the Kaf K, to the Sender family, to the Rosenbaum family. They really stand behind me in every step of the way. And like you said, you say, doesn't much get buckle under pressure. When you have people like that, you have an organization that's serious about what they're doing, and they stand behind you. It makes it easier to do your job. So I just want to express my akaratotov, as well as to my wife. I mean, like you said, the middle of the night inspection. It's not easy for anyone, Right. So my wife, and I want to thank you, Rabbi Wickler, and your Avodas HaKodesh. And as I have on my desk, I have the symbols. I'm constantly using the email addresses of different organizations. And I have the copy of
for the Kosher Supervision Guide.
Yes, everyone should get the Kosher Supervision Guide.
Right.
It's an invaluable tool. And as well as what I like is the Pesach Guide. I have a wine-stained Pesach Guide. I love it. I can't make it through the Seder without it.
I thank you very much. I want you to tell you quickly, the Kuf K, over 30 years ago, the Kuf K took off their hashgacha on a certain company, a huge company, and they lost a couple $100,000 on that. It was picked up in days by another Kashrus organization, and they told me that the centers I worked with was Rabbi Rosenbaum, who I spoke to at that time. He said to me that we asked our Rav, and he said we have to drop Tashkocha, and that's it. The money doesn't matter. That's the Kuf K. That's who you're working for.
Absolutely. I'm very appreciative that
Thank you very much, Rabbi Gilden. I don't want to go over time because I don't want to steal from anybody's time. Thank you very much, and we're looking forward to speaking to you on other occasions. Kol Tov.
Amen. Kol Tov. Hatzlacha.
Anywhere, anytime, for everyone. This is